Okay, this is recording now.
Okay, thank you. Right, I think some people might join as we're going on, as we did last time in the session. We're expecting to go on to approximately 9 o'clock. So if everyone's ready, shall we make a start? Yeah, okay. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. This is our second Shri Prajapati Association careers event, following the first event that we had earlier this year in April. So as I mentioned, this event is being recorded. It's going to be available at a later date, and the event is aimed at everyone, young and old. So start off by saying thank you to all of our speakers who have volunteered to take part in this event today. Today we've got speakers representing various backgrounds and various industries. So we've got Smita, who's from a teaching background. She's an assistant head teacher at school, talk about her career. We've got Amal, who's a GP and also a musician as well. And then we've got Seema as well, who stepped in to talk about her career as an architect. We did promote this event, advertise it as having Dylan talking about his career in football. Unfortunately, he's had to drop out at the last minute, unforeseen circumstances. But hopefully Dylan will be available for future events as well. I wanted to say, again, this is a second event that we're doing, following the first event that we did, where we had, again, a variety of speakers. We had Vijay Boy, who's from the music industry, promotional industry, performing arts. He's from his company Too Funky. We had Varshaben, who's a forensic scientist working for the Metropolitan Police. And we had Ushma Ben as well, who's an engineer with the Land Rover. So if you're interested in hearing about their stories and their careers, you can, as I mentioned, log on to the website and see what they have to say and find out about their stories and their career paths. Today, in addition, we've also got our host Sonal, who will be taking you through some interactive elements of the talk, and we'll also be given a quick training session on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, final reminder, this session is being recorded, and if anyone wants to ask any questions during the meeting, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and hopefully at the end there will be a chance to ask questions to all of our speakers as well. So with that, I think I'll hand you over to Sonal. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakesh. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Sonal, and I'm here in Leicester. Really great to see you all this evening. And I thought I'd just kick off by doing something a little bit interactive. So same as last time, for those of you who joined, what I'd like you to do, please, is just grab your phones, if possible, if you've got those nearby and handy. And I'm just going to share my screen. I've got a quiz question to ask you. So once you see the Slido up on the screen, you can either use your QR scanner or your phone just to scan the code there on the screen, and it should take you straight away to this page. If you're struggling with that, what you can do on your phone is just type in slido.com, and when it asks you for the number, just tap in that number 135740. And the first question in the quiz is to ask you, really simply, using an emoji, what is your dream job? So our section today is all about careers. We're talking about different careers, different career paths, all those barriers and successes that you've had in your workplace. But using an emoji, or you can just type it in, what is your dream job? Had a feeling this might come up. Excellent. Musicians, careers, money bags, is that? Just somebody wanting to be extremely rich? Okay, excellent. Footballers, travel writers, keep coming. Brilliant. If you've got more than one, you can add it in. Travel writer, I think, is brilliant. I wonder where you would explore first. I'm hoping this is suitable career path. Brewing beer, not just drinking it. Thank you. And something to do with fast food. Is that restaurateur, perhaps? Okay, excellent. Some really nice careers. Okay, brilliant. Got 2 more people typing, so I'll just give them a second to have a go and put their answers in. Okay. Astronaut, absolutely. Brilliant. Some very, very creative and ambitious people here. It's nice to see you guys in the room this evening. Thanks for joining my first Slido. My second question to you, a little bit more technical. So just trying to get a bit of a gauge as to who we've got in the room with us this evening. And for those of you in the workplace, what are those top 3 skills that you use every day in the workplace? So just thinking about the types of skills when you go from being at school or college and then moving into employment, what are those skills that you use every day? Give me your top 3. Excellent. Okay, keep them coming. Brute force. Okay. Listening skill, communication coming out really strongly, diplomacy, patience, empathy, customer service. Brilliant. Organization, absolutely. Yeah, really key, very important skill. Keep them coming. What are the top 3 skills that you use every day in your workplace? Coaching, excellent. Multitasking, absolutely. I think we tend to do that more, especially when we're at home. I don't know about you, but I'm often on calls and trying to wash up or put the bins out at the same time. Multitasking. Being approachable, presentational skills, yeah, being a positive influence, really great. Excellent, thank you. Thank you for taking part. I think it's really important to identify some of those skills because we use them every single day. However, a lot of these skills, they're not sort of very typecast into relating to one particular career or to one particular sector. There's quite a lot of transferable skills out there in the world of work that are used across a number of different sectors in different types of workplaces and in different roles, and even in sort of different hierarchies as well. So I think it's just really important to bear that in mind. I think I've got one more. No, that's it. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there because I think some of the skills that you have seen here on the screen are quite often some of the skills that our speakers are going to speak about this evening as well. So just to pass on and to introduce our first speaker, we have Smita Lad from Leicester, who is a deputy head teacher, and I am just going to get her to introduce herself and share her screen. Hi, Smita Baby.
Hi. I'll wait for you to get the screen up.
Okay.
All right, do you want to start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Smita Lad and I'm the Deputy Head of a primary school in Leicester. And I'm going to talk to you about my journey first into teaching and then into school leadership, and also just what the role entails. So thanks, Sonal.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So in terms of my journey, I guess it's quite straightforward because I kind of always knew I wanted to be a teacher. There wasn't anyone in particular that inspired me. I'd had some great teachers along the way. I'd done some work experience when I was at secondary school, and it was more just that I knew that I liked working with children. I knew it was a career that I would enjoy. And so for me, I took kind of the traditional route of doing my A-levels, and then I went on to do a degree. Because I knew that I wanted to go into primary teaching, I chose to do a 4-year teaching degree, which enabled me to be a qualified teacher at the end of it. I chose to go to a teaching college in Lincoln. I don't think you get teaching colleges anymore. That shows my age. But it was a teaching college in Lincoln, and it was affiliated with Hull University. The advantage of doing a 4-year degree is that it combines lots of theory and pedagogy about how children learn and develop, lots of research about good practice of teaching different subjects. You also get to specialise at degree level in a subject of your choice. So for me, it was English literature and language. And throughout the 4 years, you also do lots of placements in different primary schools and a range of schools. So you start off by doing just 2 or 3 week placements where you in a small group with other colleagues, or you are paired with just one other person. And then over time, you are doing more and more placements on your own, teaching more and more. You're working towards 100% timetable, and you're doing that for a block of 6 weeks or something like that. So in terms of me, I think it was the best route for me to have taken, because it gave me a really good foundation and best prepared me for primary teaching. So after I qualified, I decided to stay in Lincoln. I really liked the little town, and I kind of wanted to stay on in Lincoln. So I got a job in a small village school. For those of you that know Lincoln, it is predominantly white, and I was the only person of colour in the school in terms of both pupils and staff. But it was a lovely school, and I really enjoyed my experience there. So in the 5 years I taught there, I think I really established myself as a class teacher. I was able to manage a class, and I was able to manage behaviour. I could teach across the curriculum, so teach all the subjects that you do in primary school. I was really developing my knowledge of curriculum and subject. And because it was a small school and I was the only year 1 teacher, I was planning and preparing everything. I had some support from a team leader, but there was no colleague next to me that was teaching in the same year group. Also, I had no teaching assistant, so you were pretty much on your own doing everything. And I was solely responsible for the teaching and learning of that class. With teaching, particularly in primary, after a few years, you get asked to take on more responsibility. And in primary school, every teacher, as well as managing their own class, is a subject leader of some sort. So I was asked to be the art and DT coordinator. So that was a role that enabled me to do a bit more than just my class now. I was able to take some responsibility across the school. So that was the beginning of my career. And then after 5 years, I got married and I moved back to Leicester. And in some ways, it was the right time in my career for me to make this move, because although I'd loved my time at the school in Lincoln, there wasn't, because it was a small school, there wasn't really much scope for career progression. So this was the right time for me to move to another school. So thanks, Sonal. So for the last 21 years, I've been working at a large city school in Leicester. I never intended to stay for as long as I have done, but I suppose, opportunities come your way, and I've just loved the school that I'm currently working at, and I've ended up staying there for 21 years. So city schools are always challenging depending on their context. And although I am originally from Leicester and I know Leicester really well, coming to work in Leicester and in a city school was actually really challenging, especially after I'd worked in this lovely little village school, really well-behaved children, and suddenly I was in a city school with with various challenges. So first of all, it's Leicester. My school is right in the heart of the city. It's a very diverse area. There's lots of children from different religions, different ethnicity. It's a really multicultural school. I would say at that point, 95% of the children speak English as an additional language. Generally from the families, there's low levels of English. We get children from overseas all the time, and it's kind of an area of high social deprivation. And in the city, the context is always changing. So, 20 years on, it's changed in some respects, but, and largely our families are second, third generation. However, we always have an influx of different communities coming into the city. So as some families, get more wealthier and better, they move out of the area, and then you've got other communities coming in. So if I just think about last week, we had a family coming in from India, speaking Gujarati. We've got a family from Afghanistan, they speak Pashto, and we've got Kurdish children coming in from Sweden. So when I started my career at Shenton, I first of all was just a class teacher, and I taught in year 1 and 2. I also had the opportunity to be the English subject coordinator, and this meant I was responsible for the teaching of reading and writing across the school. And this was a great opportunity because, again, like I said before, English was my specialist subject, so it was a great opportunity to be able to share my knowledge and develop that across the school. Throughout my career, I've always had lots of training and professional development opportunities, which is always great. After about 5 years, an opportunity came up within the school to be a Key Stage 1 manager. So that was to lead the whole Key Stage 1 team. So that's year 1 and 2. And I was successful in securing that post. And it meant that I was able to join the school management team. So I was still class-based. I would have one day to do management stuff, but it meant that I was accountable for teaching across my whole team, and it wasn't now your responsibilities increase, and you're not just responsible for your class, but you're responsible for everything that goes on within your team. I'm responsible for those teachers' appraisals. The great thing about being in management is that you have a greater influence on more children, but also staff, because you start doing lots of work with teachers, doing lots of coaching and mentoring as well. And I think the main thing is that you're making a contribution now in your team, but you're making a contribution towards whole school goals. And for me, it was the first stepping stone into leadership. So again, after about another 5 or 6 years, again, another opportunity came up within the school to be a deputy head. And again, I was successful in securing that post. And although my kind of official title was deputy head was being responsible for curriculum and assessment, actually, when you're a deputy head, you wear so many different hats, and you are just doing so many different roles within that. Because the role is so vast and varied, I actually was no longer class-based. And although I still teach and I cover classes from time to time, I don't actually have a full-time teaching commitment anymore. So the great thing about being a deputy head is that my role is to work very closely with the head teacher, and we manage the teaching and learning in the school. As a deputy, you're responsible for more teams within the school. You're responsible for whole school decision making. You have such a great say in the teaching and learning that takes place in the school. Behaviour, you shape policies, we manage the budget, we manage staffing and recruitment, and I think for me, the thing that I really enjoy is that as well as empowering children, you really empower others. You really make a difference, not to just children's lives, but to teachers as well. Because in this role, especially now, I spend a lot more time with teachers doing coaching and mentoring. And also you start working with lots more other schools and networking with teachers from other schools as well. You have a lot of responsibility for parental involvement. And it's, like I said before, it's such a varied role. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really like being in management, because no 2 day, even in teaching, it's not the same, but particularly when you're in management, you are doing different things all the time. Leadership and management isn't for everyone, and I would say that most teachers, they prefer to stay class-based, and they choose not to go into management. But like I said, for me, it's a varied role, and it's a really fulfilling role, because I feel that it has such a positive impact and influence on so many more children, because it's across the school now. And you make such a difference to so many children and families as well as teachers. Thanks, Sonal. So here I've just got some pictures just to show you sort of what do teachers do. So on the surface of it, this is what we do. You know, we teach, but we make learning enjoyable and motivating. We try to make the learning practical and fun, so you know the knowledge sticks. We take kids on trips. We try to give them enjoyable experiences, because we want to develop their language and vocabulary. We want to develop their interest. We teach them all the foundation subjects, as well as the core skills of reading, writing and maths. And as well as all of this, we want to nurture in them a love for learning, so that they can go on to make good choices. Thanks, Sonal. So just a couple of sort of things in terms of, when I think back to my career, what the positives and negatives. So in terms of the positives, it's definitely a fulfilling and rewarding career. You get a chance to inspire others and be a really good role model. And you're making a difference to give children and young people a better life. You want to improve their young people, give them a better life chances through education, because as we know, having a good education is the way forwards to just having a choice now of the careers that are available to you. Another positive is that there is always going to be a need for teachers. There are always going to be children, there are always going to be schools, so you will always have a job if you're a teacher. And I've got to say, another positive is school holidays. For me, I've got 2 daughters and I've never had to worry about childcare, because I've always got the school holidays. On the opposite side, negatives, I would say, yes, I've just said school holidays are brilliant, but on the other hand, you can't take time off whenever you want to. So when it is holidays, summer, half term, whatever, you've got to book all your appointments, dentists, doctors, opticians, whatever you need to do. You've got to book yours, the children's, and get everyone in, because you cannot take time off any other time apart from the holidays. And I suppose the biggest negative, being in the teaching profession, which I'm sure you hear about in the media all the time, is workload. So like I said, you know, on the surface of it, it's a great career, and it is, but there is a massive workload which teachers do find difficult. And I think, you know, even in teaching now, there is a retention crisis, because a lot of people join teaching, but quite often within 3 to 5 years, people drop out of it because they can't cope with the workload. So that's one of the big negatives. If teaching is a career for you, I'll just talk to you about how you can get into teaching. So thanks, Sonal. So there's lots of different routes now into teaching, but these are some of the things that you can do. So first of all, you've got to decide, are you interested in primary or secondary teaching? And try and get some work experience and do some voluntary work in schools if you can, because you get an insight into what teaching is like on the surface. You don't see the workload and everything that goes on underneath and behind the scenes, but you certainly get to see what happens in the classroom. And then depending on whether you're interested in primary or secondary, you can go for one of these routes. So you can either do, like I did, a teaching degree, and that gives you your BA or your BSc or whatever with QTS. So that's enabling you to be a qualified teacher at the end of it. If you want to go into secondary teaching, or you're not 100% sure that teaching is for you, but you just want to get your degree, you could choose to do a degree subject in an area that you really enjoy. and that you want to specialise in. So normally a degree would take you 3 years, and then if at the end of that 3 years you decide that you definitely want to be a teacher, then you have to go on to do a 1-year postgraduate course that gives you your QTS, so your qualified teacher status. And there are various ways you can do that. So the most common one is a PGCE, which is university based. You can do something called a SCIT, which is more school-based and a group of schools that work together, or you can do something like a postgraduate teaching apprenticeship. Okay, thanks, Arnold. So if you are interested in teaching and want to ask any more questions, you can contact me on my email there, and my mobile is there as well. So like I said, it's a great career. I'm still here doing it. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, let me know. Thanks, Arnold. So any questions?
Thank you, Smita. That was really good. I was thinking of questions as you did it, but I think you answered most of them as you went along.
I'd like to ask a question. You mentioned the workload and stuff. I remember one of my nieces has become a teacher as well, and it's very tough in the first, when you start off initially, and then do you get into a routine where it's becomes more comfortable and not necessarily easier, it's still a lot hard, but the initial period she said was very tough. That first and second year, and then after that you get into that routine. Is that what you found as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really different when I first started teaching, but when I think of teachers now coming into the profession, it is really overwhelming for them. Like I said, I work with, so part of my role as deputy is I work with newly qualified teachers. So when teachers first come into the profession, and it is exactly like you say, the first couple of years are really overwhelming because you've got to learn all the school policies. And I think teaching's got very rigorous, more and more rigorous over the last few years. So it's not a case of, you can't just go in and teach whatever you like. Everything is very prescriptive, and each school will have their own policies in terms of the way they want you to teach literacy or numeracy or whatever. So you've got so much to learn, and with any job, when you first learn, everything takes so much longer. So you've got to be able to manage the behaviour of the class. You've got to be able to set all your routines and expectations. But I think kind of also linked to workload is about managing your time efficiently. But it does get easier, definitely.
And with education now, is it easier through the government to get salary increase and stuff, and that move up the ladder and stuff? Is there a set way of doing things and getting up that ladder and stuff?
Yeah, I think obviously, you know, the whole recruitment and retention, like I said, has been a bit of a crisis with teaching. So the government is always trying to, you know, they are trying to put more money into teaching. So the starting salary is increasing for teachers, and then every year you sort of increase. But I suppose the only difference in teaching is that you have like a pay scale, and it's kind of set. So once you get to the top, that's it. So really you can, if you, like I said earlier, a lot of teachers choose to stay class-based, but if you choose to stay class-based, once you get to kind of the top of that pay spine, there is nowhere else for you to go. So whereas at least when you join, if you become part of the management team, you can get onto a leadership scale, so a different scale, and then you again have an opportunity to progress. But even with that, after a while, you kind of are at the top of that, and there is nowhere else to go. So that's sort of one of the disadvantages. It's not like, you know, it's not a job where you get bonuses or you know, you can just, if you go from one school to another, it's a national pay scale. So it is kind of set in that way, your pay.
I think the presentation is really good. I really enjoyed the way you sort of demystified the whole teaching sector there. I think there's so much that goes on other than just what's happening in the classroom.
Yeah.
But with all your sort of different management responsibilities and all the different hats that you're wearing, I wonder how much do you miss being in the classroom?
Yeah, I think I do miss being in the class in terms of when you're a class teacher, your relationships with the children are so much more are different. I don't have the same relationships with the children now. I kind of know all the children, but I only know them at kind of surface level. Whereas when you're a class teacher, you really get to know them and their families, and you know about them as learners, and it's a completely different relationship. And I do miss that, but I really enjoyed the variety of being a deputy and all the just all the different roles that go with it. And in each school it's different as well. So like I said, in this school, because I've got responsibility for so many different things, I'm not class-based, but I know other deputies and they might still have a bit of a teaching commitment. I think when I first was deputy, I was still class-based, and what I found is I couldn't give 100% to the class as well as giving 100% to the deputy role, because if you're in the class, you've got to give that 110%. And I just felt that I wasn't there enough for the children because I was constantly out. I was always being called out to do different things. So in the end, something had to give, and that's when the school did a restructure and I was able to be a non-teaching deputy.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions at all for Smith Awashi's here?
I've just got one on the workload you mentioned. In the first couple of years, what kind of support is offered to the teachers? Does that usually come from the deputy head and the head teacher themselves, or do they have any other outside support they can call on?
Okay, so now there is a 2-year induction program, and it's called Early Careers Teacher Framework. So there is a lot of support for teachers nowadays. I mean, when I started, you were kind of pretty much just thrown in, and you had support from the team leader, but other than that, you would just kind of got on with it. But like I said, now there is this ECT framework, and it's a 2-year induction program. Each teacher that when they start their career, they have a mentor, and so they've got a lot more support now, and lots of professional development opportunities. So yeah, I would say that they get a little bit more support now, but on the other side, I suppose it's just that there is so much more accountability. There's this framework with so many objectives that they've got to get through, and so you've got the teaching standards now that you've got to be adhering to and showing that you're reaching these standards and things like that. So the support is there, but there's a lot of accountability as well.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Smita. That was a really good presentation, and thanks for providing your details. If anyone wants to get in touch for more advice on getting into teaching, that was really, really good. So in the interests of time, shall we go on to our second speaker, Sonal?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So introducing Amal. Do you want to come online, Amal, and introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks, Rakesh. Hi, my name is Amal. I'm a doctor, GP. I'd mainly be talking about my career so far as a GP. I wouldn't class my music as a career, but it is something that I have kept alive to hopefully be able to develop it into a hybrid career of medicine and music. So that's what I'll talk about. My slides aren't that comprehensive. I don't know if you got the slides, but it's,
yeah, just putting them up. Yeah.
No worries. When you asked me to do the talk, it's and highlight some of the positives and negatives of my journey as a GP, I think it's easier to say the challenges I've faced to get to this point, because it highlights the negatives about the career as well as the positives. So So just move on to the next slide. So yeah, I'll talk about the doctor part of it, which is a bit more straightforward, but for me wasn't so straightforward. So initially I wanted to become a musician, a rock star, work in a studio, be surrounded by music. So this is something that creativity has been something in my life since I was a child. And growing up in Warsaw and going to a comprehensive school, I didn't have exposure to a career such as medicine or dentistry or anything like that. So the people around me, nobody really did that. And the school system, you didn't know how to get there. So I chose A-levels, the wrong A-levels, basically. So I wanted to do computing, physics, maths, that type of thing. And to get into medicine, you need to do chemistry, biology, the sciences. So based on that, I already started off with the challenge that you need to have a very specific A-level choice to be able to do it. So then ended up having to do a 1-year course in chemistry and biology, and then managed to finish those A-levels as an added year after my sixth form, 2 years. So then I had the A-levels, but didn't have the grades. So I managed to get all B's in my A-levels, and for most medical schools, you need A stars and A's. But even when I finished my A-levels, I didn't have the grades or any offers. So I had no offers when I finished my A-levels. So I went through clearing and got into to do biomedical science. That's the next point. You might as well just put all the points and I can just talk about each one. Thanks. So biomedical science at Queen Mary in London, and that was 3 years, which was great, and it really helped me come out of my shell a little and understand who I am as a person, which is another thing about a career as a doctor, is you enjoy your job if you are able to work to your strengths. So for me, kindness, empathy, things like that, I really feel are my strengths, whereas the more prescriptive way of being, or the dictatorship type of leadership, if you're a surgeon, that might be more of a better speciality. So yeah, I did three years of biomedical sciences, managed to get a 2-1 and managed to get a offer for medicine at Barts in the London Medical School, which was great. And I did that for 5 years. So that was a total of 8 years at university. So alongside that, you do develop some student loan debt. So that's another one of the challenges. So after I finished medical school, which medical school is a very different degree to your traditional. If I was just to compare it to biomedical science, my medical degree, there was that lecture-based aspect to it, but a lot of it is also practical. So there's 3 years when I was in hospitals, shadowing doctors, learning the trade side by side like an apprenticeship. So I really loved that part of medical school because I'm much more of a practical person. So you learn on the job, you get time to spend with patients, you learn that part of your job. But that was 5 years. And then afterwards I did, so there's 2 years of foundation program. So you hear about the junior doctors. So foundation years are 2 years, and then I did 3 years of speciality training as a GP. So post graduation is about 5 years of extra training before you are fully qualified, so to speak, to say that you're a GP. And within that, there's different types of specialities. So after that foundation program, the 2 years, you can do other specialities like medical specialities, general medicine, if you want to become a heart doctor, cardiologist, or a stomach doctor, gastroenterologist, or a surgeon. These are all added years after foundation program. But what I would say, and a real advantage about being or doing this as a career, is it is very flexible in that you can do what you want to do, but it just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it is worth it. And I think one thing I would say is, I persevered despite all of the rejections and the failures, but looking back now at the times that I wanted to stop, I'm glad that I didn't. And having support from your family and people around you to kind of help you during those challenges really helps you become a bit more committed to the job when you do fully qualify. So yeah, that's fine. So that's the doctor part, but I can talk a bit more about that music, the career part of the doctor part at the end in the Q&A. So yeah, with my music side of it, yeah, just put all of those. It's been something that's been with me for my whole life. So the challenges of going through medical school, it was quite a lonely time. I was in London for 8 years. It wasn't always easy. I didn't find studying very easy, and music was my way of discovering who I am, understanding the feelings that I had, the emotional side, the spiritual side, and I always had an affinity to the guitar. And I don't sing, but I just play the guitar. And for me, communicating through music is something that comes very naturally. So I didn't really have access to people to jam with. So for me, I always wanted to have this vision of me standing on a stage, rocking out on the guitar. And this is why I put this photo there, because I feel this photo was when I thought, oh, hang on, this is what I wanted to do when I'm there, but it's also not quite as fulfilling as I thought it would be. There's something more to it. And so for music, for me, is a very personal thing, but I started to become better at music. I started putting it out, and I was able to compose music for film, theatre. I've done some of my music. The first release got played on the radio as part of BBC Introducing, and recently I released another release called Experimental, which kind of now merges the two worlds of music and medicine. So if we move on to the next slide. So I can't really talk much about a career as a musician because I don't feel like I have a career as a musician. But the funny thing is, now my life and my career is the merge of the two worlds. So a lot of young people, and one of the take-home messages I'd like to say to people who are considering a career in medicine, a lot of people say you need to stop doing, so if you have a dream to become something creative, musician, a dancer, filmmaker, a lot of people say you can't do that, don't do it, get a proper job like a doctor or a lawyer, this kind of thing. And I don't think that's necessarily the best advice. I think it's really important to keep that spark within you alive, because it will make you a better doctor. It will make you more of who you are and make you more fulfilled and happy within your own life. So now what I'm doing is finding how creativity can improve people's lives. And I was given an opportunity to perform as a musician at TEDx for the NHS. So it's a complete merge of the two worlds. And that was kind of the first time I performed with my heartbeat as a drum beat, and explained the concept of how we can use more creativity to improve health. And then the second thing was a track that I did with my mum, who has a brain tumor. And this is called Hearing Tumors, where it's about using music to express symptoms of having a brain tumor. And it came from an idea when I couldn't help her from a doctor perspective. So then I decided to use my musician brain to help her, because she was struggling with her tumor at the time. So we made a track called Hearing Tumors, and you can hear that online as well. And then more recently, I've started a podcast. So I found that I was having a lot of conversations about the two worlds, about music and medicine. And I thought it'd be really good to capture these conversations and spread that and create a community about creativity and health. So there's a podcast, you can listen to that. And now next month, I'll be starting a master's to do a subspeciality within medicine for performing arts medicine. So I'll become a doctor who looks after musicians, actors and dancers with specific ailments that trouble them. So hand injuries, foot injuries, mental health, hearing, ears, and also the arts and health side of it. So bringing arts into healthcare. So how we can prescribe dance lessons, things like that, get people a bit more active using creativity from a GP consultation room. So I think it's a difficult thing to be very linear when you want to become a doctor, but I think it's one of those things that if you can find your strengths and really develop those strengths and point it in a direction where if you want to help people, if you want to contribute to the world, it's one of the greatest careers you can do. But also don't forget who you are and the great things that you have within you, the passions you have, because you don't have to give it all up to do medicine, and do it for yourself. Don't do it for anybody else. It's not glamorous, despite what people think. And yeah, but it's a brilliant career, and I'd highly recommend it. Any questions? So I think it was not as clear because I've got such a hybrid of a career. So maybe yeah, if anyone does have specific questions, they can always email me.
Yeah, that was super, Amal. I mean, one of the questions I was thinking of to ask you, but you answered it close to the end, was how do you find time, and you know, what's next for you? But it sounds like, you know, fantastic. You found an avenue within the profession that lets you carry on being a doctor and pursue your passion for music, helping other people with their music as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's not really a question, more of a comment, but that's amazing.
Finding the time is difficult. I still don't have the time to do both to the level that I want to do. So I think if I was to look at it from a creative perspective, if I would have spent the kind of time that I could have spent if I would have stopped doing some of the medical stuff, I may have got a bit more progress as a musician, and I may be able to comment on a career as a musician. But it's you can't, if you do something part-time, you get part-time results. So I think it's one of those things for me where I've worked for almost 15 years in this thing to create this music and medicine career. So hopefully I can do that full-time. And that is the next step, really, to answer your question. I'm doing that master's to get that extra speciality, but there are a lot of subspecialties out there. So I only learned about this master's a year ago, or a year and a half ago. So even when you're in the profession, you don't hear about these things. But it is it's a beautiful career to have, and you help people from all kinds of backgrounds. And it challenges your judgments, your prejudices, your thoughts. You know, just growth in terms of, you see on the news what's going on in Leicester at the moment, right? And one of the first things I thought when I did become a doctor is you have to help people who may see you as a enemy, or see you as somebody that you wouldn't otherwise talk to. You wouldn't be friends, but you're let into their world in such an intimate way. So the growth happens not only mentally, but spiritually and physically. And I think it's a great thing to do to develop your empathy and compassion. I think it's similar to what Smita said about when you're helping people from all different backgrounds, it's really fulfilling and really satisfying. Yeah.
What would you say to people that perhaps feel, you know, to become a doctor is too hard, then not academically strong enough, they don't know if they're going to be able to do it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I didn't get the grades to get in my GCSEs and in my A levels. So what I would say to people who think that it's too hard, I'd say, if you aren't willing to accept failure, you'll get there. So you will fail. This is the thing. But if you aren't willing to accept that and you really want to do it, then you will get there. And I remember this moment as one of my greatest kind of things I'm proud of is the teachers at school said to me, "You haven't got the grades, you'll never do it." They told my parents, "He's not got the grades, he'll never do it." Right? And my parents sat there and they said, "If you want to do it, you'll do it." And that's one of the greatest things, to have that kind of support. And I went the long way around, which is why it was a long kind of 8 years, but I got there in the end. Yeah. And you do that for the rest of your life. So
that's really interesting. that belief that even if you haven't got the grades or that you carry on and doing it. Was there anything specific that just made you carry on? Is it the support of the family, or your inner belief, or because that's the real crux of it, isn't it? Because that's really,
yeah. So what happened to me was, as you can probably tell, I've got a very, very strong passion for music, and it's a very personal thing. I don't really share it with anybody else. So I don't have like friends who share that passion or family who share that very deep creative passion. But the doctor told me you'll never play guitar because I had pain in my wrist. So I had this pain in my wrist and said, you've got early arthritis in your hands. And this was at the age of like 16 or 15 or 16. And it was the wrong diagnosis now that I know with experience. The wrong thing to say to somebody who's that young. But that made me think, I'm never going to do this as a career. So then I started, and I did some work experience, which is something I forgot to mention that's so important. Did some work experience and I loved it. I loved the ability to be part of people's lives so intimately. And so that passion for music shifted to this passion to become a doctor. So I focused all of that energy into there. And kind of part of it is luck as well, because you just have to kind of be in the right place at the right time and things work out. And if you believe in any higher power, I think all you can do is work as hard as you can and have some focus and believe in yourself. And I think I'll probably end on this, but if I had somebody who I could talk to who was in my situation when I was 15 or 14, at that point you have to make these decisions. I think, it would have been the biggest benefit, which is why I'm so keen to kind of offer any support if there's anybody out there.
Thank you. You're the second person, sorry, so we had a meeting on Sunday, which is our sort of quarterly fraternity meeting and stuff, with a politician or a councillor on there, and he said the exact things: A, perseverance; B, failure, doesn't matter about failure, you'll get failure, carry on; and thirdly, the work experience you mentioned as well. Whether you get work experience, so don't worry, it's paid or not, just go, because that just brings you ahead of anybody else who hasn't got work experience, because people remember you in that old firm, or you've got something to fall back on.
Yeah, and it's not just about getting you ahead of other people, it's about making sure that you know what the job is about. Work experience, if you're thinking about a career as a medic, is the best thing you can do. And write down your experiences, because you'll need that to carry you through your whole career, because you need to remember where you first wanted to do it. As long as it's not your parents who are pushing you to become doctors, that's the wrong thing to do.
Got a question. You talked about the level of training and the amount of years you spent at university. So obviously that's almost 8 to 10 years of training, learning different kind of things. Were you working alongside of that to get an income, and what sort of what point would you start getting income from being in that kind of profession, really? Yeah,
so the income really started when I graduated from medical school. Previous to that, it wouldn't have been easy. It wouldn't have been possible to work alongside medical school or biomed. So I was very fortunate that, student loans paid for a lot of it, but I had parents who could help and family who could kind of support me. And we're not well off at all. We're from very humble backgrounds, but another testament. I think my mum and dad are on this call as well, but I think it's a real. I can't even imagine how life would have been. I wouldn't have been here without my family support, really. And it's not like they have savings or anything like that. It was just they really believed in my goal to do that. So I don't know how I got through it in response to that question, to be honest, because living in London was not cheap, and I didn't really spend recklessly or anything like that. So yeah, but you do come out with a lot of debt. So it does come at a price, but I didn't have income until 2014 when I graduated. Yeah. That cool.
Great, thank you, Amal. That was super.
And feel free to contact me if anybody wants any help.
Okay, doing another time check. We want to finish on time today for 9 o'clock. I know Indian timing generally goes over, but yeah, we've got time now for our last speaker. So, Sonal, do you want to mention anything, or shall we go straight on to Seema?
Yeah, I think let's go straight on.
Thank you, Seema. Thanks, Amal.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm Seema. I'm an architect and I've been qualified for 14 years. Currently working for a developer. But yeah, working for 14 years, but it took a while to get here as well. So that's what I'll talk about today, and then I'll talk about working as an architect. So the architecture kind of qualification is split up into 3 parts, and I'll just call part 1, 2, and 3. So part 1 is your degree at university. So that's 3 years. And generally, like they would like you to do kind of art, maths, design, science, but not all maths or not all science. Like a bit of a combination between science and humanities. But yeah, the 3-year degree wasn't really what I was expecting. I kind of thought, architecture is quite structured, some maths and things, but no, it was kind of all about like how spaces make you feel. And I mean, in the first week, they gave us these like 6-foot sheets, and we were asked to do a spatial dance in groups. So we were just like, we could choose our song, and we could just like run around in a field and make a dance using these sheets. And I was like, what is going on? But it's really about how it's about how space makes you feel, how like, light and shadow can change, how you feel in a space and how others feel, and how, as the day changes and the sun moves, like how all of those spaces change throughout the day. So I mean, it was really like teaching us like a whole range of things, even though it was a slightly strange way to do it. But yeah, it's all about space, depth, height, and the drama, and how you feel a lot of the time. But yeah, a lot of the work that you do and the models that you make, they're kind of presented, and you have these weekly or kind of bi-weekly crits, which are like presentations to your tutors and to your peers. So yeah, a lot of it goes up on the wall. It did in my day, but I imagine a lot of it's computer-based, but it will still be presented. So yeah, and a lot of it is in like how you present things. I think one person can present something and someone can present the same thing completely differently, but the way they talk about it and their passion can really like, it's almost like selling your idea, but it's kind of, there's no right or wrong really. And like, but like I kind of like struggled with that quite a lot, like in the first year, because I was kind of quite logical, and I was kind of like, okay, well, I could do this one way, I could do this another way, and both are right. So yeah, it's quite subjective, but yeah, it's all in what you believe in and how you present it and how you make others feel in the way that you work. But yeah, so in the 3 years, it's all pretty much coursework, drawings, models, notebooks. So I only really had 2 exams in the whole time, and those were in history and urban design, which were not core modules. So yeah, so most of my kind of work was marks on just my coursework, my presentations and models and stuff. So yeah, and just being creative and thinking like way out the box. There's nothing really conventional about the course. Yeah, so after your degree, you have a year in industry, so a year working in practice. So it's quite different to uni, because it teaches a load of other things. So it's quite practical, pragmatic, and you've got other consultants to deal with, and yeah, things you hadn't really considered at uni. So you've got cost and scale and materials and time, and yeah, so all of these things that you just, they just weren't really taught at uni. But I suppose the way they teach you at uni is kind of the fundamentals and the basis for sending you out into the real world. So depending on where you work plays actually quite a big part in how creative you can be and stuff. So my first year of work, I wasn't given like the most glamorous of things. So it was mostly toilet and bathroom drawings for like high-end homes, some of them not even for high-end homes, some of them for schools. or like extensions, some scout huts, and like a lot of photoshopping and like making drawings look very pretty and helping with planning applications. Not the most glamorous, but you have to do all these things, and you have to get the basics before you can like start doing other things and like kind of prove yourself. So, you know, now I can get other people to do the toilet drawings and things because I know what I'm doing now. Yeah, so then after that you go back to, you need to do a 2-year master's or diploma, so that's called part 2, and then your projects and your research in those years become a lot more in depth, and you get to choose your site, you really research the surroundings and the history and the use, and kind of you can then play on like parts of those things to like bring them into your project, and you know, you can reflect on those and stuff, and the local needs. So you kind of really, it's quite explorative and still experimental, so not completely out there, but using the knowledge that you've had in your year of work. But yeah, also coursework and presentations and drawings, yeah, to get you to the end. But so yeah, you've done 5 years so far. Well, no, 6 years including your year of work, so you're still not qualified yet. So you've done your degree, your year out, and your diploma, and then the final part is your part 3. So some choose to do it straight away, which is what I did, but others choose to work for a little bit longer, so you get a bit more experience, and it's kind of, it does end up being a bit easier because you've got a lot more knowledge on how projects work and things. So to qualify, you need a minimum of 24 months experience. So you've got 12 months already from your first year out, and then you do your final 12 months, and then you should have enough to be able to qualify at the end of that. So you need that, and then it's all recorded in kind of a professional experience development record, which is all online, and you need a case study of a project that you worked on, ideally from start to finish. So kind of where you work will help you to choose a project that will work, that they know they'll work all the way through. And if that doesn't work, then you can do 2 projects, but it's not the most ideal, but it can still work. And then you have an exam. It varies from university to university, but my exam was office-based and open book over 3 days. So yeah, it was quite odd, but you can't really talk to anyone about specifically the questions, but you can ask general questions or ask, where can I look for this? So it's supposed to be kind of realistic in the way that you would work in an office, because you're not isolated really. So yeah, open-based exam, and then an interview. So the interview kind of captures everything that you've done. So they'll have a look at your records of your 24 months of experience, they'll have a look at your case study, they'll have a look at your exam notes, and then they'll kind of, if there are bits that they're not sure that you've quite got them right, you'll have a chance to kind of rectify and give a better answer if you didn't quite get it the first time. But otherwise, they're just kind of checking that you know what you're doing, and you've learned a lot. And because up until this point you haven't really learned about all of the contracts and law and appointment and fees and yeah, all the things that are very important in trying to run an architecture practice. So yeah, so you're kind of like trying to learn all of that in 1 year, and that's how they do it. And as well as all of those things, there'll be a number of lectures and things to help you with all of that. So eventually I got through all of those 3 bits, so that was 7 years in total. But yeah, for me, like, working practice is yeah, a lot better than uni. Like, I much prefer it. So it's so much more real and rewarding. Like, you get to see like your drawings in real life, and like, oh yeah, these little bits. And when you first start out, it's not always like what you think, and you kind of like, oh, I didn't draw that bit, and they've just done something. So you have to really think about every single part. And if you really like want your building to look how it should, then you've got to really pay attention to every single bit of detail. So I see construction and detailing as like a big 3D puzzle, and I get to choose the pieces. So like that's an aspect that I really enjoy. But yeah, like projects now have like ever-growing teams. Apologies if I missed any out, but there are project managers, structural engineers, mechanical, electrical engineers, lighting, acoustics, fire engineers, interior designers, highways consultants, environmental consultants, approved inspectors, surveyors, and probably many more. And it's really the role of the architect to kind of coordinate all of these different aspects and elements and make sure that they're not conflicting and fighting with each other and they don't clash, so you end up with a fully functional working building. So I've worked on various projects in my past, and a few of my favourites are like one student accommodation scheme in Newcastle, which had 270 bedrooms across 5 buildings. The cost was circa 9 million, but what I really enjoyed was like working with modular construction. So there were 2 forms of modular construction on this project. So there was 2 buildings which were panelized modules. So, you know, we had a foundation and we had like various panels and they were all just craned in. So the building actually went up really quickly. So these panels were structural and insulating. So once they were up, we still need windows and we needed facades and roofs to make the whole thing watertight. But it was massively quicker than steel, block work and brickwork, just, you know, for how quickly it went up and the building could get watertight. And once you're watertight, you can do a lot more. And it just means that everything inside is a lot more safe and you're constructing in a dry environment. And then the other 3 buildings were volumetric modular. So we had these shipping containers, which were bespoke made. So they weren't standard size, but they were made to fit the building. So we had, and they were made in China, and they were fitted out fully with your flooring, your plasterboard, the bathrooms, the doors, the lights, smoke alarms, door handles, skirtings, everything was all fully like fitted out in these rooms. So we had a container which stretched to end up being a bedroom, and then a corridor, and then the bedroom, and then you'd kind of just like you'd stack these and like line these up, and that would form the building. So yeah, I mean, I just had a lot of enjoyment on that project because it was so modular and so structured, and it was it was great for my OCD, so I could just make sure everything was perfect. It was great. Another one that I worked on was the Grosvenor House Hotel, which is on Park Lane. This was totally different. It was all internal fit out. So it was the vision of this interior designer, all lots of beautiful things like albino peacocks and mirrored ceilings and, you know, marble floors everywhere with this metal inlay. But so the hotel have had issues in the past where the interior designers have done things and, you know, they don't quite work because they've had marble flooring before and it's cracked all around the edges. So it was our job to work with their design and make sure it was still true to their design. But if they were going to have a marble floor, which they did, add in a load of movement joints. So for every material, you have different expansion and contraction rates. So you had to make sure movement joints were in the right places. So there was this metal inlay that had a really kind of Aztec design, but then we made sure that those movement joints were kind of coordinated in with that design so it didn't look really out of place. So there's things like that. And then with the vent, like the interior design and the ceiling layouts looked just beautiful with just a few lights, but we had to make sure that all the ventilation was working and in there, and the sprinklers and the smoke alarms and all of those access panels, and make sure they're all in there and coordinated, and they still were all in line and looking pretty. So like anywhere I go now, well, and generally and before that, I would always look at the ceilings, and ceilings can really be my bugbear. If the ceilings aren't lined up properly, it just really gets on my nerves. So that was one thing that we worked on really closely with those guys. But yeah, it was all of the front of the house. It was a reception. They had a mirrored ceiling with some chandeliers on. So we had to work with the structural engineer and make sure that all of that could all stay up properly. So again, yeah, we worked on that. We worked on all the bedrooms as well. in that hotel. So yeah, beautiful spaces, like lovely detailing, and where they have their afternoon tea, and I mean, you know, some of the interior designers, they go a bit out there and they have these like horsehair screens, and you're like, oh yeah, great. But we won't go into that. But yeah, so I do enjoy the collaboration with all the other consultants. You don't really have a choice in this industry. Like you have to work with people. You've got to be able to communicate with, like, in various forms, in meetings, over the phone, and you know, that's just a big part of this job. But I did quite often find that I was the only female, the only Asian. I'm going into lots of meetings, and especially construction sites. But you know, like when I was younger and I first started out, I'd generally always go with one of my bosses, and they would always like kind of turn to them to like answer the questions, and I'd have to. And you know, my bosses, to be fair to them, they were, you know, well, same as the architect, you've got to you know, ask her, and yeah, but I did find that I'd always have to prove myself kind of everywhere at the beginning, every project, every meeting. It's not ideal, like it is getting better, but in doing so, like for myself, like it's actually like built up my confidence, and yeah, I kind of be driven to be taken seriously. So you know, it doesn't take long to get kind of that approval, or you know, that thing from people. So it's, but it is annoying that I have to go through that process kind of every time. But yeah, I would say, yeah, this job it's quite consuming. There can be some like late nights with like deadlines, and quite often architects say that our projects are like our babies, because like we love them and we want them to be the best like they can be. So like as architects, we're really invested in our projects. And yeah, I just feel like it's a job that you can only really do unless you really love it. So I would say the future for me, like I really want to do more modular buildings. It's definitely the future for the industry. Every project is different, every site is different with different constraints, and so not all sites would work for volumetric modular like I did with the shipping containers, but you know, there's always aspects for like the panels, that's still a form of modular. I've done projects where they've got bathroom pods, the bathrooms are like all fitted out and plumbed in, and they can go in it. So all of these things, whether it be room by room, or you know, they can do facades, so the building's up and then the facades are just hung on. So for every project, there's always a way to add modular in. So that would be the thing, because it's definitely better for things to be made offsite in a dry environment where there's more control. It just makes the quality of the build a lot better, and yeah, so I definitely just work for more projects on that, and that's one of the reasons why I joined this developer, to do modular construction. So yeah, it hasn't necessarily turned out how we'd expected, but yeah, that would probably be my next move, to work for someone who does more modular things. That's it for me. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Seema. That was really, really informative, and I can't believe you put together so much to talk about in such a short notice period. Extremely short notice.
No worries. Yeah, I was like, quick.
I can actually see you walking around London, checking out ceilings and architecture around you.
I can't enjoy a meal like in a restaurant without looking at the ceiling.
Yeah, so I think you maybe covered it already, but you know, to summarise, anyone else wanting to get into architecture, what would be your advice to someone wanting to start out?
So I would say, you know, well, if you were doing your A-levels, I'd say, yeah, pick maths, pick a design or an art, maybe a science, and you know, and like I kind of found that when I went to uni, I probably didn't appreciate a lot of the buildings that we have in London, and I suppose across the country as well. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be London, but just I would say go out there and really kind of analyze and look at what's there, look at the materials, look at how, and kind of think, how does this space make you feel? Like, what's the light doing? Have they created shadows in different ways? And you kind of think, well, how would I do that? Or do I like it? Don't I like it? What would I do differently? And yeah, just kind of, yeah, question a lot of the spaces around you, and think how can you improve them, or or do you like them? Do you not like them? Like, no, there isn't a right or wrong answer with these things. So it's how it makes you feel and things. So yeah, I'd say yeah, go out there and see what there is, and yeah, just enjoy spaces.
Seema, you mentioned that you were sometimes the only female there, sometimes the only Asian stuff. And you had to overcome that. What was it, your technical skills that you thought that brought you across the line, or was it your communication skills or something to help you overcome those barriers and stuff?
I'd say definitely communication. Yeah, it's one thing. And yeah, I think technically as well, I think you have, obviously, if you are asked a question and you don't know the answer, it's not really going to help. But yes, so technically you have to know, or if you don't, just know how to say that you'll find it out and respond back. But yeah, it was different every time for every project, but it was, you just kind of think, well, why is this still happening? But yeah, technically, definitely, it definitely does help. And I did find that even on some projects, people thought I was much older than I was, and before I was 30, I was like, I can't believe you think I'm 30. But it was just because I had such good knowledge on my projects and the good communication that I had, that they kind of just thought I was a bit more mature than I actually was.
Stick with it, yeah. I think there's a couple of budding architects, I know a couple of ladies on the chat on the group. One's an architectural technologist and one's a interior architecture.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
Yeah, so if you got any other questions, like, yeah, feel free to, oh yeah, someone's found my LinkedIn, lovely. If you do have any questions, yeah, either contact me on LinkedIn or yeah, get my details off Sonal, and I'll be happy to answer any more questions if you need.
I've got a question actually. You mentioned that you're working for a developer at the moment. So do you have any input as to what kind of projects you take on, or do you get sort of put on the projects that they take on as the company? And sort of, you mentioned also working in London and obviously buildings in Newcastle. Did you get to travel to different places as well to view where your buildings are going to be going, that kind of stuff? And final part of the question is, obviously, have you ever sort of been like a freelancer where you try and do your own stuff? Is that something you've tried or would try?
Okay, so the final part I can answer quite quickly. No, I've never done freelance, but I would be open to it. So working for a developer, I actually work for a startup developer at the moment. It's not fully established. The reason I decided to come and work here was because of the project that they were supposed to be working on, which was going to be modular housing. Didn't quite work out with funding. So we then bought a site down in Cornwall to do student accommodation. So I got to travel up and down to Cornwall, but I didn't necessarily have a say in the projects or what we're working on. It was more driven by what was available, the kind of need for the area, and yeah, how much funding we could get depending on the kind of business plan that my colleagues would put together. And then traveling. So yeah, I got to travel to Newcastle. That was probably and Cornwall, but other than that, not much. So it was mostly London-based projects. But it really depends on where you work. Like quite a few of my friends, I work for Foster's. They're a huge architectural practice, and one of my friends went to Dubai for 3 years to work on the expo. And then she got offered opportunities in Saudi Arabia and other things that she hasn't necessarily taken up, but it's always an option. So yeah, there are multiple opportunities for travel, definitely.
And so one thing on because of the last 2 or 3 years, 2 years with the pandemic, the world has changed totally in terms of office space and use of that and stuff. Are you finding a shift between, or are you finding more work in terms of rearranging office spaces and stuff like that? And has the world changed in the architectural world in respect to, and how has it changed effectively?
Yeah, so I mean, it has changed quite a lot. So I haven't worked on many offices, well, in the last 2 years, but previously I have worked in offices, and the way that it's been done before is kind of you would kind of assess the office, see who's in, who's not in, and what days they're in, and how many meeting spaces are used or not used, and how people want to work and collaborate, and then you can start dividing up the office like that. So not that I'm working on them, but I know quite a few friends who work in workplace, and they analyze offices quite a lot like that, and they'll then go in and change how the offices are. But yeah, I've also got a lot of friends who work currently in offices, and they're not, that process isn't happening for them. You can just hear them say like, oh yeah, the canteen's empty, like there's no one sitting next to me, and things like that. So it's up to the owners of the companies to kind of get in touch with workplace consultants and architects, and figure out what they can do to make their spaces work harder.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Seema. I'm going to be a stickler for time, and I'm afraid, Sonal, your LinkedIn piece that we were talking about doing as well, maybe we're going to have to save that for another session as well. But I think a very special thank you to Smita, Amal, and Seema as well for their talks today. I think it's been every one of you has been fantastic. I think everyone that's had a chance to listen will really appreciate your time to give your insights into your career and your stories as well. So thank you very much, guys. And I think it's really good that we've had a chance to record this session, so people that wanted to hear about your careers and not been able to join today, they will be able to see the recording and find out a little bit more about that career, and maybe get in touch with you again in the future if you're fine to do that as well. So I think what we're going to leave open for next session is we've got, as we mentioned, the LinkedIn session that Sonal can give. Hopefully Dylan will be available to talk about his career in football. He's recently been involved with Wolverhampton Wanderers and Leicester City, amongst other clubs as well. So I think he will be a big attraction. We've also had volunteers for speaking from their careers in the aeronautical engineering sector. We've had someone from the service industry. We've had a photographer, a chef, volunteer as well. So if we can get feedback as well on any of the careers that people would like to hear about, we'll be welcome to any ideas and any further volunteers. And as we mentioned, the people that have spoken already today, Seema as an architect, Smita as a teacher and a head teacher, or assistant head teacher, Amal as a musician and as a doctor, and previously had Vijay from the music promotion industry, and then we had obviously engineering and forensic sciences represented as well. So all these things that we've already covered hopefully be available, carry on promoting them, and we look forward to having another event in the near future as well. So yeah, any other closing thoughts, Sonal, Kamleshbhai as well?
No, just to say thank you everybody for joining us. It really is our mission. I think both me and Rakesh are really invested in making sure that this is useful for you guys, and it's sort of that buddying, mentoring type thing. So if you've heard somebody speak this evening and you think, oh, that'd be really great for my cousin, or for my sister, my brother, or my daughter, my son, please do drop them a message and let them know about this event. You know, we're really trying to make sure everybody understands the different pathways, demystifying careers for you. And we've got lots and lots of people just within our Prajapati Samaj who are very, very talented, very ambitious people. So if you would like to attend the next one, or you feel like you've got something to add, please do get in touch with myself or Rakesh. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Shall we put the link on the chat as well, so anyone that wants to can
Yeah.
I'll type it in now. Yeah. So anyone wants to see the recordings can see them as well.
Yeah. I just wanted to, again, just thank the presenters, Smith and Seema, particularly for joining in late. It's a fantastic job, Animal, as well. All your careers and pathways have been really interesting and exciting. So I'm sure you'll inspire many people to go whichever route they want, and in your respective careers as well. And also just to thank Sonal and Rakesh, you know, you spent a lot of time putting this together as well. So thank you again, guys. Another fabulous session as well. I've had quite a few people saying they couldn't make it today. So, you know, they all want recordings and stuff. So the recording will be on our Prajapati, www.prajapati.org.uk website within a couple of days, not a week or so, once or on our website, webmaster has a chance to put it all on there. It's saved in the cloud and you just need to upload it. So yeah, so if you know of other people who couldn't join today for whatever reason, they can view the recording in a few days' time on our website as well, and last time's recording as well. So brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Special thanks Smita, Amal, really professional presentations, and Seema stepping in last minute to help out as well. Really fantastic. So yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you everyone.
Thanks everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.